Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Alot About Nothing. My name is Scott.
My name is Mike.
And today, our topic of discussion is Missing 411. Now, Mike, do you know what Missing 411 is?
I do not. Could you inform me?
Of course I can. Missing 411, I'm not sure quite where it got its name from, but there's a bunch of documentaries out in the internet and video streaming services. These documentaries follow the missing person cases of individuals who go missing in the U.S. national forests as well as Canada, and it's all over the U.S. It's not just in one specific place like in the Rockies or the Appalachians. Anywhere where there's a vast wilderness or even a small wilderness, these people go missing. And the numbers I've seen highest of like 1,600 cases, but there is no official count because nobody keeps records of them. There's records of certain stories and accounts, but nobody like the United States Forest Service or the government or anything, nobody takes an actual count of these cases. And that's why it's so interesting, because there's so many and only a fraction of them are solved, which is even more crazy. Could you imagine missing somebody, losing somebody, a family member, a friend or whatever, because they went out into the woods and then you just never see them again? Never find a sign of them again.
And it all happens so fast. Like some of the articles that we're going to talk about, you see the person 1 minute, you turn around and they're gone. And they're not just like 100 feet away. They're like miles away.
Yeah, and age range, there's from 2 years old, there's from not infants, I guess, but like toddlers all the way up to senior citizens, 89, 90 years old, you name it. There's most likely a case that relates to it. Mike, we each pulled up on our laptops different stories, different accounts from different people. So, Mike, if you want to share one of yours.
So the one I found really interesting was this guy named Danny, who is a firefighter, went on a skiing trip.
Hashtag represent.
Woo!
Hashtag brotherhood.
To Lake Placid, New York, is where he went skiing with all of his friends and stuff. His friends started to head back to camp. He said he's going to grab his phone from his car. So he goes to his car to grab it, and his friends, he never came back, and his friends started to get worried because the car was, a couple of feet away, like over the hill or something.
Yeah.
And then he never got back, so his friends started to get worried. His friends then contacted the authorities. His wife was alerted and everything, and they never found him. And then a week later, he calls his wife. His wife said that he sounded real confused and didn't really sound like himself. And when his wife was talking to him, he was unable to tell her where he was. So she called the cops, and the cops instantly acted on it and triangulated his phone all the way to Sacramento, California.
Which is on the complete opposite side of the country.
So in a matter of a week, he was missing for 1 week. He somehow went from New York to California, and when they found him, he was still in his skiing clothing, skiing gear,
skiing, yeah, sure.
And he had a haircut and a brand new iPhone. And when he finally was met by the cops, it kind of like snapped him out of whatever he was in, like that funk, I guess. Trance, yes. It snapped him out of that trance, and he said that he has no clue where he was, he didn't know how he got there, and he knew nothing.
You see, now that's just, well, number one, they're all weird, all these cases that we're going to share with you and all. And you can actually go and find them online just as easy as we did. But with these cases, sometimes it's like these people get in a trance, and yes, you can explain different mindsets and losing your memory, short-term amnesia or something like that. Yes, it's explainable by natural causes, but you got to admit, getting from one side of the country to the other, regardless if you remembered or not, that's kind of a tough task. Plus, he got a new iPhone and a haircut. I think did you mention the haircut? Because I remember.
Yeah, he got a haircut. But here in the article, it says that he remembers being in a truck at one point, passing through Utah.
And how did he know that it's Utah?
I don't know. It says,
specifically Utah.
It says
you see a bunch of Mormons or something?
Yeah.
Salt Lake
He
City.
said he kind of remembers being in a truck at some point passing through Utah, which means it's not like he was locked in the back.
Fun fact, I kind of remember being in the back of a truck going through Utah myself.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us.
It always happens. And is there anything else on that story? Because I know a lot of these stories, some of them, unfortunately, don't have any resolution, which is actually the next story I'm going to go into.
Yeah, he's one of those survivors, I guess you can call it.
Yeah. So another story, and like I said with the age range, this one's actually kind of upsetting because of the age. But more recently, in 2015, the vanishing of 2-year-old Dior Kunz Jr., who in July of that year was on a camping trip with his father, Dior Sr., his father's girlfriend, her grandfather, and their friend Isaac Reinwand. In the same region where another individual had vanished, right in the Rocky Mountain National Park. At one point, Dior Jr.'s father and girlfriend left the boy at the campsite with the grandfather and the other friend. And I do recall because this case was actually part of one of the Missing 411 documentaries. It really focuses in on this case, and that's why I found it even more interesting, and I was just happy that I could find an article about it. Basically, this little kid, he's 2 years old, like I said. His father and his father's girlfriend, which I think was the biological mother, they went off to go to the local town to get food and water and other supplies. They left Dior Jr. with the grandfather and a family friend of sorts. Now, if you watch the documentary, the family friend, he definitely has some type of mental disability. He seems a little bit not all there. And he, as well as the grandfather, the friend and the grandfather go fishing in the nearby lake, to the nearby lake. Dior went with them. Dior was with them, and then the mother went to the lake to get Dior, and they didn't even leave yet. So they had turned around. They were all by the lake. Dior Sr. and the girlfriend had walked away, maybe not even like a minute, turned back around, and the grandson was gone. They checked the immediate area. Again, they didn't even turn around for like 10 minutes. They didn't really leave or anything like that. They got back, or they turned around, and he wasn't there. So then they gathered a whole group to search the area to find him. The grandfather told him that he had simply been there 1 second. Next second, he was gone. And a search of the area turned up no sign of him, nor did an extensive official search of the area, because since this was such a little kid, they had every agency out there looking for him. They had helicopters, the FLIR, the heat sensor cameras looking for this kid, and they could not find him.
You gotta remember, he's only 2.
He's only 2 years old.
It's not like he can...
How could a 2-year-old have walked away far enough or gone away far enough or hidden somewhere? I guess they're small.
I guess
but
hidden could be
when
possible,
they do these searches, they're looking in those small places. So after the extensive search, it was not thought that he had been kidnapped because there was only one narrow dirt road leading into the campground, and it seems like an animal attack would have been noticed by the grandfather and left behind some sort of evidence. It is rather strange because he was only 2 years old, and is not thought he could have gone very far through the rough terrain on his own. Yet Dior Jr. has never been found, unfortunately. And when you watch the documentary, if you watch the documentary, I do recommend it. They are very entertaining. This one in particular kind of breaks down because when a kid goes missing, a lot of eyes get pointed towards the parents, get pointed at the parents and whoever was in charge of the child at the time. After investigation of not only the grandfather and that friend, because those were the last two that I believe actually saw him, they found no type of criminal background. They found no reason that they should have done that or they could have done that. Granted, anybody can snap at any moment. I think, there's hard criminals out there, but I think anybody can be a criminal at any point, just like anybody could be a saint at any point. But anyway, they went to the mother and his father. They were investigated because a lot of eyes always get pointed to the parents. Local media picked up the case. Actually, national media picked up the case. And they were just kind of throwing out theories and kind of accusing the mother and the father, or really trying to get out whether or not they did it, because everybody wonders, did the mom, did the dad kill him? They did research into the mother's background, and her sister had made a report or a claim, or no, my bad, it was the aunt made the claim.
Okay.
That she had complained about having to take care of little Dior Jr.
So the news media is saying that she killed him because she didn't want to take care of him, kind of thing?
The media pretty much crucified that family without ever finding any evidence as to why the kid disappeared. And I get it, trying to put answers to questions, but when you look at this case, it's different because it's a young kid and you really want to find out. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, there's a lot of these cases out there that go unsolved. And it's not just this case, it's other cases where I'm sure other people have been accused of, maltreatment or not taking care of, not watching kids, or people that just became unaccounted for and they disappear. And again, this isn't the only case, so it's not like this was special, yet these parents got crucified, and whether it was justified or unjustified, it put a lot of stress on their life, because again, you gotta think, even if you have troubles, That's your blood, a little kid that you're supposed to raise to be healthy and successful, and he's gone with no sign, not even a shirt,
no
a
trace.
shoe, no trace. And that's what makes this thing so interesting, these cases. Mike, I think you have another case that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I have one more that involves a little old boy. His name is Keith Parkins, and he was at his grandfather's ranch kind of thing.
Yes, and I actually, again, this story was on that episode, that documentary as well. So just heads up.
So he was out playing in the front yard, and the grandfather was checking on him every 5 minutes. And the kid was 2 years old, and he was just doing little kid things, playing in the front yard, playing in the dirt and whatever. And the grandfather went to go check on him again, and he was gone. So, like in all the other cases, a search was put out. Nothing came up in the immediate area. They continued to look, and 2 days later, they found the boy, 2 years old, laying face down on a frozen pond.
This story is just so crazy because this, again, some of these stories that we're sharing are kind of the extreme of the extreme, but every story is different, but they're all the same in the same way.
Yeah, so this 2-year-old child managed to travel 8 miles through rough wilderness.
Hold on, Mike, did you say that right? How many miles?
8.
And it was a child, how old?
2 years old.
Oh, a 2-year-old traveling 8 miles.
8 miles through rough wilderness from where he'd gone missing.
And I think it was the middle of winter, too?
Middle of winter. He was found face down on a frozen lake with no jacket on.
Oh, yeah.
So he had a jacket on. He then took it off, walked 8 miles, and was found face down, alive. He was alive.
Yes.
Face down on a frozen pond. So how can a 2-year-old child travel 8 miles in 2 days over rough terrain, shirtless in freezing weather, and lay down face down on a frozen pond and still be found alive?
And even if this child, and again, it's 2 years old, but yes, maybe he goes hiking with his family a lot, but even if this kid was one of the most ventured hikers out there, there was research done on this case showing that the capabilities of a professional hiker to get 8 miles, that professional hikers, people that do it all the time, would struggle to go 8 miles in the time frame that this 2-year-old kid, without any weathered protection, any jackets, any clothes like that, would make it.
Yeah, it even says it right here. A survival expert named Lise Stroud deemed it impossible for a 2-year-old to have covered that amount of distance in that time, in the weather that it was, in the dead of night, and be alive.
Well, that's another thing, too. You got to think that it was nighttime, dark, but also imagine all the wilderness in terms of animals and dangerous animals and things that are out there at night, too, that, well, they're going to be looking to eat something the size of a 2-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, he's small. He can't defend himself from a mountain lion, a bear, coyote, maybe even,
I mean, again, it's a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't have those defenses saved up. And if they do, good job teaching your kid how to beat off a bobcat or a mountain lion or whatever it is. And on the grand scheme of things with the missing 401 cases, I think it's actually pretty important to bring up and talk about these cases because, like I said in the beginning, there is no government agency actually investigating these cases. Once they go through their initial search phases, which some of them probably don't get the biggest search ever, but again, there are teams, search and rescue teams that are out there looking for these people. Once they hit I think it's like a week or so, or it all depends on the case. With a little kid, they're probably going to search a little bit harder than like an 89, well, maybe an 89, but
yes.
Somebody else.
To add and to edit one thing, he was only gone for 1 day. He was lost overnight, found the next morning. So in 1 day, not 2 days, in 1 day he went 8 miles.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the FBI doesn't investigate missing adults.
That's exactly where I was going.
Only children.
Even with those children, it's debated how, this is going to get into a little bit more of the conspiracy side of this. Why isn't the government, or why isn't any actual agency investigating it? Why has it gone on for so long without anybody? And there's actually a guy, his name is David Paulides, and he's who's actually in charge of writing. So Missing 401 was actually a series of books first before it made it to going into the film and documentary series. But he's actually been the main person behind investigating these cases. He has multiple books, which I have not read myself, but I have heard and seen great reviews, and I don't have enough money to buy one to read, but I do want to because this is just when it comes to wilderness in general and how these people go missing, it's just so interesting. And I would hope that somebody could provide some type of answers. I'm probably not going to be the one to do it, but if I could bring attention to it, I think that's probably the best role that I can do with it. When it comes to these cases, they need to be solved. And with the outdoors and wilderness, there are so many different stories that go on in the woods. One main one that a lot of people know is Slenderman. Slenderman is a tall, white figure with a black suit or so, long, I was going to say octopus-like arms, but I think he has multiple arms that spread out, and he hunts kids, which, granted, it's a creepypasta, I believe, that Slenderman is. But a lot of people, a lot of stories have Slenderman or a creature like Slenderman, no face, something like that, haunting woods. If you look at, like I said earlier, there's teams out there that like professionally search and rescue for these people. They professionally provide those services to look for these people. And a lot of times they have stories about how creepy and how wild their time in the woods can get.
I was going to say, and when you do meet a survivor, they often don't know what happened.
Well, yeah, that's another thing with these cases. A lot of these people don't know what happened, or if they do remember certain details, a lot of it ends up being something that's very creepy or just doesn't make sense. The fact that the first story we brought up, he could only remember possibly driving through Utah in the back of a truck. There's some people that can only remember, there's one kid that could only remember walking into a cave. As he walked further in the cave, he described it getting lighter, as though he was walking towards the sun, even though he was walking deeper into the cave. And not only just the light in the cave, but he remembered talking to somebody.
Yeah, he said he saw his grandmother and a bunch of people. And then as he got closer, he realized it was not his grandmother, but he described them as robots. But he did say that although it wasn't his grandmother, the lady was still very nice and polite.
Which is nice.
That's great.
Yeah, great. You know what? There's nice robot old grandma ladies hanging out in the woods.
I'll take a nice robot over an evil one any day.
I would absolutely agree with you 100%. And that kind of reminds me, that story kind of reminds me of like portals and stuff like that. They're stories. If you guys ever get a chance to go out in the wilderness into these large forests, there's a legend about staircases that you could find out in the woods that were built without anything around them. It's just staircases by themselves out in the middle of the woods. And the legend goes that, number one, you should stay away from them. Never, ever go near them. Don't even acknowledge them, because bad shit will happen to you if you do.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mike.
I'm an Eagle Scout. I've done tons of hiking, and this is something I've never even heard of.
Mike, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've never heard of the stairs?
I haven't.
So, in a lot of the major parks, again, like Appalachian and out more towards the west, because that's where there is a lot more national forests and stuff. In these forests, people come across staircases and door frames that are just out by themselves, no foundation around them, no walls, nothing like that. And the legend is that sometimes they're like portals. Either if you approach them, you acknowledge them, you walk up to them, you make contact with them, bad shit's going to happen to you. Or there are some, which, again, I don't necessarily believe, but I've never experienced it, that they are portals to a different realm, reality, something like that. So there's stories out there that people have seen the stairs, climbed up the stairs, or whatever, just joking around. Friends turn around for 1 second, turn back around, then they lose their friend.
Wow.
They have no idea where they go. Same thing with the door frame.
Do the staircases go up or down?
Staircases go up. I do believe there are some staircases that go down.
Is it like
most of them? So imagine imagine you have a 2-story house, no basement. You walk into the ground floor. There's a staircase going up to the second level. It's basically one of those.
It's like like a short one.
Yeah, short, okay. Large. I don't know if there's a specific number of steps.
Yeah, is there like a thing where if it goes up, you're going to heaven, if it goes down, you're going to hell kind of thing?
No, it's just bad shit regardless.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but that's what they say. They say don't even acknowledge the stairs. Just acknowledging the stairs or looking at it or like approaching it, something bad's gonna happen. You're gonna get lost. They're said if you have a compass or if you have phones or something. Granted, a lot of phone service doesn't really work that far out in the wilderness, but if you have a legit compass, they actually get thrown off and will stay thrown off, and you won't be able to find your way out. I mean, that's deep into the wilderness, but again, a lot of these cases are in a campsite. People walk 2 feet into the woods, don't come back out, don't ever get seen again. Lucky if they find a trace or remains and stuff like that.
Even a campsite with a road it happened on.
But I find this stuff fascinating because it creeps me out, and I hear these stories, and I don't know what to do about it. Because there's one story that I'll share a story. I can't remember it 100%, but the search and rescue team was sent out to find a missing child. I think it was like a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, something like that. They went out in the area. They searched for, I think, a 10-mile radius or maybe 15-mile radius for this child. They couldn't find anything. And when these guys search, these professional search and rescue teams, when they go and search, when you hear the saying, no stone left unturned, they literally turn over every stone. They look in every hiding spot. They look in every cave. They investigate everything. They do not let these people go easily. These people searched for a 15-mile radius. Then they came back because they couldn't find anything. And once they got back, a group of them decided, hey, let's go double check in this area one more time. Because they left it out because it was a steep cliff. I think it was a couple 100 feet tall. And they couldn't find them there before. But again, it was a little kid, so why would they be up on a cliff?
Yeah.
They searched the area where you need professional hiking equipment, and they found the dead body, the remains of a 2-year-old kid hanging in the tree.
And I know it. Ooh, wow, plot twist.
Yeah.
I know we said that it doesn't really affect one age group, and it seems like we're only talking about kids. But that's the sad part is that's all you're really going to hear about is because it's a kid.
Well, the kids, it's just. Well, it's upsetting. That's what's naturally going to draw attention. But again, there's people, middle-aged people, elderly people that are going missing in these forests, the same places. A lot of these places are the same places, too, the same national parks. I mean, granted, there's only a few national parks out there, but they're huge. But they're all going missing in the same areas of these national parks. And like I said, we kind of got into the theoretical about it a little bit, too, and the mystery, and the creatures and all that out there. But this topic needs to be shared. If you or anyone you know has gone missing in a forest, call Smokey the Bear. No, if you do happen to hear about a case, share it. If you do happen to hear about a story, share it. You might not think it's real. You might not believe in it yourself. But, hey, stories are stories. They're entertaining. I love stories.
It's true.
And I think that these, regardless of how true or how fictional the stories have gotten, the more information that comes out, that allows other people to hear it and maybe be able to tie some of those loose ends together. Maybe like, oh, hey, I saw that person. Or I heard this story before, and it went this way. And you can kind of bring it all together, and it might be a better picture.
You might end up in California.
You might end up California, new phone, new haircut, no ski equipment.
No, in full ski equipment.
Oh, he was in full ski equipment?
He was in full ski equipment.
Oh, man.
In California, that seems a little toasty.
Just a wee bit toasty. Just a wee bit. Plus, there's no snow because there's no water.
I know.
I don't know.
Crazy.
Whatever. So yeah, I think that's gonna about do it for this episode. A couple of things we do have to finish up real quick. We did get a lot of this information. Thank you to the Mysterious Universe website. This article in particular was published in November of 2019 by Brent Swancer. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And we also got another article from Thought Catalog by Emily Madriga from September of 2017. There's a lot of different sources out there. I highly recommend researching it yourself, especially if you find it as interesting as me and Mike do. Other than that, on our own, on the general information about the podcast, we do have a couple episodes out now at the time of this recording. You're going to be able to find our podcast on SoundCloud underneath Alot About Nothing. Again, a lot is spelled in one word, not in two. I know that's grammatically incorrect, but yeah, that's how I felt like doing it, so that's how it is. It's also available on YouTube underneath the channel of A Lot About Nothing. Basically, if you look us up on social media or any platform, it will be under A Lot About Nothing.
One word.
A lot is one word.
A lot is one word.
But other than that, I don't think we have anything else to share. This is a shorter episode, but we could go in depth about it. But I think that once it starts running on, it's just going to get boring, and I want to keep it as interesting as possible. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in to another episode of A Lot About Nothing. My name is Scott.
My name is Mike.
And this is the end of the episode. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good one. See you next time.